When we look at response and we focus on its actual mission, what response is, it's resolving what's occurred. It's resolving events and incidents. But we also have to look at it that it has to be within what type of time frame has been set to be appropriate. So certainly you could work on something for a year, but is that really going to fix the problem in a timely manner? So there's usually defined time constraints within which something needs to be resolved. But also, because we're dealing with information that we've gathered and possibly compromised data from systems on your infrastructure, we also have to understand how that information needs protected. And we have to ensure that if it's needed to be kept secure, it is, and that information is handled according to any legal policies and procedures that the organization has, and also meeting any rules of investigations. So for example, there are certain questions and certain methods in investigation where you might not be able to ask specific types of questions because it would be illegal to ask certain questions of particular employees. So you have to understand that context too. And then, of course, resolving events and incidents according to what has been established as the path or the method in your organization. So do you have organizational policies? Do you have a defined procedure that needs to be followed? And do you have quality requirements as far as how and when that response is executed, including the dissemination of information if needed? So even though the mission of the response process is to resolve events and incidents, there's always a context within which you have to operate, and there are requirements within which you have to operate. You have to be able to have those identified ahead of time before you know how to conduct your response process. When we look at response, very often what is focused on is the technical aspect of response, saying, how do I stop malicious activity? So if I have malware installed on the system, how do I get rid of that malware? If I'm under distributed denial of service attack, how do I stop that attack and ensure my operations can continue? But we have to realize that there's more than just the technical response steps. We've identified that there are also management and potentially legal steps. And when we take a look at these three steps, we'll see the difference in them. But management is more looking at long-term strategic issues that need changed, policies, procedures, training, staffing. And legal can involve law enforcement contact. It can involve looking at liability for maybe downtimes that could impact service level agreements you have with customers. So there's a lot of different things that can be involved from the legal context. But let's take a higher level look at what happens during the response process itself. Part of response, part of response can involve continuing to do more analysis. Now, analysis itself is its own response. It's its own process. But still, even though it's its own process, you may continue to do more analysis as you continue to build your response process. But the key pieces of the response process are how to plan the response strategy. Once you get the results of your analysis, actually determining what needs to be done and figuring out those steps, and then figuring out who will actually execute the steps. This may involve who has authority to execute those steps, but also who has the expertise to execute those steps. Once you have your response strategy planned, it's then coordinating the efforts to actually execute that response, whether it's containing and eradicating activity, malicious activity, preventing threats, if it's disseminating information and notifications to others, or if it's even making changes in the security defenses of your network or your infrastructure. Another part of the response process is communicating with internal and external stakeholders, providing updates and briefings on what's happening, letting them know when you feel that the response has been completed and the steps have been executed and now the response can be closed, and even passing information on to other parts of the organization if there is seen to be a more systemic problem that needs to be addressed. So there might be a problem management process or a group within the organization that looks for long-term improvements or strategic improvements in operations. So if you see something that happens over and over again, it may be that there's a more endemic problem that has to be addressed. So for example, if employees continue to click on links that take them to malicious sites or download malware onto their systems, and that does not stop, then we have to look at, is there a problem in the infrastructure that we can put more defenses in place? Are there ways to capture those bad links ahead of time so people don't receive them? But on the other hand, is there different training that needs to be looked at and needs to be given to the employees to ensure that they're not clicking on these bad links? So all of that can also be seen as part of response. There's that immediate response steps, but then there could be longer term response, such as comes from the problem management part of things. So we look at planning, coordinating, and communicating the response, and it sounds like that's a long process, but actually those events and those sub-processes can be happening very quickly as we identify what our response strategy is, who's going to do it, and then any notification or communications that have to happen. Certainly things can happen over a longer period of time too, especially if we're looking at those longer term problem management issues. What is actually done as part of response is going to depend on the role and authority that members of the incident management capability and their collaborators actually have. So in technical response, that may involve actually providing guidance through phone, email, or some other mechanisms that are in place within the organization, telling people what to do to address the problem. Or it may actually involve going on site to sit at affected systems and make changes to the systems themselves, or even to remediate the problem. It can also include more data collection, analysis of logs, files, and other types of data, and then development and dissemination of any type of remediation strategies, or it could also involve, if there's a vulnerability on software or hardware, patches or fixes or workarounds being sent out. For some organizations, they may need to publish information externally. They may do that with an advisory or an alert or some type of technical document that provides more in-depth information about what the problem is and the steps to correct the problem. If there's been a victim site, or if there's a site that has actually reported the problem, getting information back to that reporting site can also be part of that technical response. So we're actually looking at the technical response, including making changes in the infrastructure that is needed, going and providing a guidance and assistance, whether that be via phone, via email, or in person, or actually making the remediation yourself. And that technical response can be done by a variety of staff. It can be done by the IT group. It can be done by security team members. It can be done by incident management capability, and it can involve even more than that, depending on how your organization is structured. Now, when we look at the management response, in this case, we're looking at more the management and administrative functions. So executive and upper management are involved. Human resources could be involved. Media relations could be involved. And in this case, response could be determining that some new policies need to be put in place. And then getting the right approval and getting those policies in place to prevent this activity from reoccurring. Human resources might be involved in training, and maybe there's long-term training or security awareness that needs to be done and added into any new onboarding process that new staff go to, or maybe there's training courses that provide insight into information security issues that need to be mandated for staff to attend on a yearly basis and acknowledge that they're performing that. There could be specific role-based training that needs to be done. And it could turn out that some of the problems occurred because there was not the right expertise to either handle a problem or secure systems in a certain way. So there may be issues that need to be corrected with other types of more specific tool-related or process-related training. Media relations can get involved in internal and external publications. We've seen organizations where not only have they been breached, but that information has been made available in the public. So now they don't only have to handle what's going on internal to their organization, but they receive questions from the media, they receive questions from customers, and they have to have a coordinated and quality response put together. So media relations can become involved in getting that information out, handling requests and questions from the media, the press, news sites, other security experts who might publish information on the internet through blogs or other types of media. And also, it could be that the media relations group is helping to draft wordings and communications for internal organizational employees too, to understand what has been going on. For legal response, there's a variety of types of activities that's covered in legal response. It could be that they require some type of investigative assistance. Some organizations, military organizations, government organizations may have their own investigative group. And so possibly there has to be a more legal law enforcement type investigation that goes on. There may be advice on liability. If your operations are taken down by a distributed denial of service attack for a long period of time and you can't deliver services to your customers, are you now liable for any type of breach of service level agreement? On the other hand, there could be other liability issues, such as if your systems have been compromised and now are being used to do malicious activity to others outside of your organization, such as perhaps your systems have been infected with malware and set up to run as bots on a botnet to either do spam or to do denial of service attacks or to possibly capture other information, be used in some illegal way. Are you now liable under any laws? Have you broken any laws for attacking others or releasing information? So legal can provide advice on that type of liability. If you are working with third parties, legal can also take a look at the contracts and service level agreements and ensure that those third parties have assigned appropriate non-disclosures, intellectual property agreements, and data protection agreements saying that they will protect your information at a level commensurate with the rest of your employees and staff. Also, as far as what they need to do if within a third party there's some type of breach or incident. Are they required to report that information to you? Can help in the long term to see how the response process works across your supply chain and require that certain notifications occur so that you know about the ongoing activity, but also that you have a path, your response plan includes your third parties and they know what their responsibilities are under that plan. So that can also be a legal part of response. It might also be doing computer forensics evidence gathering. It could also include digital media analysis, being a liaison to contact law enforcement. That can be another side of a legal response. If you have to collect information and set up to prosecute someone who has performed illegal or malicious activity on your systems and networks, that can come under the legal response, and even any type of compliance reporting. So are there instances where there have been specific type of breaches, release of PII or personal health information that now you have to report to specific government organizations? So are there reporting requirements? Usually the legal response is initiated by management. Management knows when to pull in the right part of the legal response, but it's possible that those actually planning and executing the technical response can work side by side with those legal entities or law enforcement entities, depending on what your policies and procedures are and how your organization is structured. Before getting into some of the other pieces of response, we want to make sure that we're prepared to do response effectively. So we want to ensure that there may be some things that can help and be used during response in place. Now, those things may not be able to be done by an incident response organization or an incident management capability, but they may have to be done by other parts of an organization. But they're things that the incident management team may want to be able to have access to. So those types of things can be having a critical asset inventory, knowing that what are your key critical assets, knowing which ones have high priority and which ones are the primary assets that allow you to perform your business functions and mission. A risk analysis, looking at your key critical assets and then determining ahead of time the types of threats and risks against those systems, and then also what the consequences would be if something happened to those systems. So knowing that in advance can help formulate your response and mitigation strategies. Understanding the data, where the data is located, on what systems, and at what level the data is. Is it restricted data? Is it sensitive data? Is it classified data? And understanding that to know that you have to protect that information, what kind of business impact can occur if that information has been compromised or released. So understanding, too, on your network, where is that information actually sit? Having your incident management policies and procedures already developed and institutionalized. The policy would lay out who's responsible and has authority for incident management, how incidents should be reported, and then what are appropriate and approved response strategies that can be done. Procedures are at the lower level. The policy tells you what it is, but the procedure tells you how to do it. The procedures are more step-by-step. So having your response strategies laid out for different types of attacks, having the procedures for those. Very often we hear those called playbooks. So having playbooks for different types of incidents, having those ahead of time so that you have a plan of action and a set of established courses of actions, points of contacts, the type of subject matter experts you might need to pull in, who you have to report to, what type of communications might be needed, what type of notifications, just all the particulars about that particular type of incident. But also understanding that you have to have flexibility. You're not going to be able to anticipate everything, so you have to have flexibility in those procedures. There may be times when you have to deviate because of an unexpected situation. And then having the defined interfaces with other parts of your organization or any external experts that you might pull in to execute the response, knowing ahead of time who they are, already having introduced yourself, and then establishing criteria for when and how to interact. A good example of this is with law enforcement. We recommend that any type of incident management capability, that probably the lead for that, maybe some of the technical analysts would meet with law enforcement in their local area, introduce themselves, and find out from law enforcement what type of things do you want us to report and what is the method that you would want us to report. Are there any constraints? Certain issues such as if the damage is under a certain fiscal or financial amount, they may not want you to report. If it's over a certain amount, they may want you to report specific type of crimes. They may want you to report, and just understanding how you might work with them. Same with your ISPs, your internet service providers, contacting them, understanding who they are. They get to know who you are, talk about what level of service they provide to you, and when and how you might ask them for assistance in responding to a computer security incident in your infrastructure. So those are just some examples.